Welcome to DRJ's webinar series brought to you today by MHA Consulting. I'm Bob Arnold, President here at Disaster Recovery Journal. We thank you for joining us today and we hope you gather some great information from today's webinar. Everyone's phone has them muted and we ask you to utilize the question panel you'll find on the right hand side of your screen. Our speaker will attempt to answer as many of these as possible at the end of the session. Again, today's sponsor is MHA, and the topic is business continuity planning and documentation for critical suppliers. Our speaker today is Michael Herrera. Mr. Herrera is the CEO of MHA. In his role, Michael provides global leadership to the entire set of industry practices and horizontal capabilities within MHA. Under his leadership, MHA has become a leading provider of business continuity and disaster recovery services to organizations on a global level. He has conducted hundreds of mock disaster exercises ranging from tabletop to full-scale exercises for industries of all kinds. Michael is a well-known and sought-after speaker on business continuity issues at local and national meetings and conferences. And prior to joining and founding MHA, he was Regional VP for Bank of America, where he was responsible for business continuity across the Southwest region. And with no further introductions, I'd like to welcome and turn the mic over to Michael.
Bob, thank you very much, and thank you for the opportunity to speak today. And again, welcome everyone to today, Business Continuity Planning and Documentation for Critical Suppliers. It'd be interesting at the end of this to see how many of you are identified as critical suppliers. And what we've seen today is companies as small as 10 people can be deemed a critical supplier and have to implement business continuity. Dramatic change in how customers are looking at you from a critical supplier perspective, what they're asking of you, and what they're asking of you, not just today, but ongoing as you continue your relationship with them. MHA, we've been around now. This will be our 20th year in operation. And as Bob stated, prior to starting MHA, I was with Bank of America. And since that time in 1999, we've grown and now grown to being a global business continuity consulting firm that not only provides business continuity consulting, but provides a number of software as a service business continuity tools to evaluate your compliance, evaluate your risk, conduct your BIA, and or store your plans securely in a repository. We also provide a robust suite of services from assessing your current environment, where do you stand today from a business continuity and disaster recovery perspective, to identifying the right strategies and solutions based on your current state, to developing response and recovery plans that are executable, that can be used at time of a disruption, to conducting the types of exercises from tabletop to walkthrough, to functional, to full scale, and lastly, to maintaining and improving the entire enterprise business continuity environment. So let's talk a little bit about the critical supplier. First thing we're going to have on our agenda today, we're going to talk a little about some of the critical supplier trends that we see today. Also, understand your customer motivations. We do see at times when we're working for a critical supplier, they can somewhat at times get irritated with their customers because they're saying, well, why am I a critical supplier? And why are they asking for all this? And why do I need to have it so quickly? And what do you mean they're going to include something on my contract that's going to require them to allow them to come in to my facility and or review my plans on a regular basis? And from that, then we're going to discuss, well, what is it you need to do? What does this all mean? And how can I get through it to work in line in partnership with my customer to make sure that, again, we help each other out as we're trying to make sure we're, again, have a solid business continuity effort among both of us. We're going to go over how will you demonstrate compliance and capability? What plans do I need to have in place? Strategies, sites, what types of documentation should I be able to show them that prove that I have a sound business continuity capability? Also, how will I communicate information to my customers? Should I ever have a disruption? What should I have in place and what does this mean? And then generically, how can a consultant help you if you're that critical supplier and trying to figure out what is it I need to do today? Here's some critical supplier BCM trends that we've seen over time. One, purchasing contracts, guess what? They now enforce BCM requirements. And if you're lucky today, you don't have purchasing language in there for BCM, it probably won't be for long, because you will have a purchasing contract that will enforce BCM requirements. And they're very stringent in their language and ensure that not only that can they review your recovery plans, they can also come on site on a regular basis to validate what you have when it comes to a business continuity perspective. So now purchasing contracts enforce BCM requirements. And if you don't have one today, you can expect one in the future. Number two, as I stated, customers can come on site to review the BCM program. In the past, we used to be able to basically tell our customers, hey, here's our BCM overview document that tells you exactly how we perform our business continuity, and most would go away and felt comfortable with it. In today's world, using their purchasing contracts, they now come on site. We actually had some customers where they would have 5, 6, 7, 8 of their customers come on site to review what they had all at once, so that it could all be reviewed simultaneously versus having each of them come individually. So again, be prepared. Customers come on site and they will expect to see your plans in detail and go over them with you. Go over your strategies, your solutions, your test results. Number three, you will need to spend money on business continuity management and no longer just check the box. As I stated earlier, it used to be very simple to write a plan or write a BCM overview document for our customers, and off they went and they felt comfortable. Today, they want to validate that you can recover. So you're going to need to check, you're going to need to do more than just check the box. You're going to need to spend some money on strategies, solutions, and prove you can recover. Number four, be prepared for clients to participate in your recovery exercises. They're going to want to make sure that whatever process, service, or product you're providing, should you do a recovery exercise of that, they want to participate and validate that you can, again, make sure that you're back up and running when they need you to be back up and running. So be prepared for them to ask, when is your recovery exercise? Can we participate? Number five, be prepared for third-party auditors who ask the hard questions. We often get asked to go to our customers' third-party critical suppliers and ask the hard questions about business continuity, disaster recovery, to review the plans, to make sure that these plans weren't just taken off the internet and written today. So be prepared for those third-party auditors who are going to ask those hard questions and want to validate anything and everything you have when it comes to business continuity. Number six, you can lose your contract if your BCM program is not up to snuff. We recently had that with a client where one of their critical suppliers failed when it came to an outage, and their business continuity program did not meet the requirements and the service level expectations. They went out and found a backup provider. So be prepared. And then lastly, this is going to be in the future. Clients are going to start asking about your suppliers and subcontractors. This is now what we call fourth party. So a number of the highly sophisticated clients are now going to ask you and start to talk to you about your fourth party, your suppliers and subcontractors, and want to know what they have. So it's becoming, again, a very comprehensive process from what used to be very naive to now being very sophisticated in what they're asking for, what they're looking for, and to what level they want to participate in to make sure that you as a critical supplier can meet their continuity needs should you suffer a disruption. So let's talk about customer motivations. I think it's really important because a lot of times we've seen critical suppliers get very upset because to the level of continuity program that a critical supplier or a customer is asking for. So first and foremost, step back and understand what's the level of importance of what you provide to the customer. I mean, have a very good understanding. I know you know what goods and services you provide, but gosh, to the customer, is it something unique or is it hard to find or replace? We've had clients that have had very small companies that provide such critical components that if this one critical supplier is gone, pretty much stops their entire supply chain or other critical technology services. So again, step back for a second and try to understand from the customer's perspective, how unique is it? Is it hard for them to find or replace? How critical is it to your customer? You may feel that your service or good or product doesn't need to be recovered for 2 days should something happen, but to the customer, they may need it in 4 hours, 24 hours. To try to understand, again, what does it mean to them and their supply chain of their services or goods to their customer? Is it time sensitive to them as well or confidential? Are you a sole source provider? You provide such a unique service, you're the only sole source. There's no one else to get quickly and easily. So try to understand, again, what does this mean to the customer? And if you talk to your customer and talk to them about as well as when do you need our service, product, or good back to you should we suffer a disruption? Try to understand that from their perspective so you can get in alignment. Here's what we can do, here's what they're asking for, and kind of understand the delta and what you need to do to make sure you're in line with your critical customers. All right? Now, also lastly, understand the consequences of failure to the customer. What does this mean to them? A lot of times to customers, it can mean very severe fines, penalties, sanctions, lost customers, revenue loss, brand and image, a lot of different impacts to that customer should you go offline for any reason. So we always tell our critical suppliers we're working with, let's step back and let's see what this really means to the customer. So there's a very good understanding and knowing, because again, we've seen some angst between critical suppliers and customers trying to work together for business continuity. So very important. Now you've gone back and tried to take a step back and understand how important it is to your customer. When do they need your product, good, or service? Now they've sent over some requirements to you. Here's what we expect. Now you got to start to say, oh my goodness, what is my business continuity management capability? So let's be honest. I will tell you this, working with so many different customers, some are critical suppliers, some are not. But those that are critical suppliers that many of us rely on, what is scary to us is in many cases, there is no BCM program at all. So first and foremost, you need to be honest with yourself. Do I even have a business continuity and disaster recovery program in place? And if I do, is it somewhat aligned with standards and best practices? Is it well documented? Or guess what? Is it a bunch of emails put together? Is it a document that has 5-10 pages in it that really won't get us anywhere? Have we ever even tried to exercise it? And most important, can it recover your critical operations, which are key to your customers? In many cases today, what we've seen, and again, what's been scary to us, notable clients that are critical suppliers have no business continuity management program in place, can't recover their business or technology. So be very honest with yourself. Where do you stand? So when a client does ask for information, you do know where you're at today. Also, how good are your alternate sites if you have any? Your data center, your business sites. Do you know what your residual risk and exposure are? Are they great? Are they small? Have you mitigated the majority of those risks in order to make sure your business can continue to be operational should you suffer a disruption? Do you know your recovery time objective and recovery point objective for your systems? You should be able to know, how soon can I recover my product, my service, or my good back to my customer? In what recovery time frame can I get that back to them should we go offline? Is that minutes, hours, days, or weeks? And also, if you provide critical technology, what's the maximum data loss or recovery point objective your customer can expect back from you? You should know this, and you should be very realistic and honest as to where you are, so whatever they ask for, you have a point of reference to go back to. And then lastly, make sure as well, understand the state of your critical suppliers and contractors if you're a critical supplier. Who's providing goods and services to you, and ensure that they're strong and they're vetted when it comes to business continuity as well. So how do I demonstrate compliance out of all this? So we now know what the customer is looking for. We've looked back at how important it is to them. Well, how do I demonstrate compliance to make sure that whatever they've asked, I can start to put something together? The hard part is going to be this. If you're a critical supplier, one of the other things that we've seen, or one of the other areas of confusion for so many critical suppliers, is in many cases, you will receive multiple different types of checklists from all your different customers. And that's made it hard for a lot of critical suppliers because they're getting different sets of questions from all over the place. So that's why you got to make sure, how do I organize this so that in the end, I know, hey, this is my business continuity management program, and I can show it to all of my customers. It makes sense, and it shows them I can recover. So let's talk about how do I do that? So how do I demonstrate compliance? First and foremost, you should have a sound customer business continuity overview document. This should be a document, most I've seen is 3 to 7 pages in length, that really shows me this is what my business continuity program is about. Here's how I govern it. Here's how I manage it. Here's how I handle crisis. Here's how I handle business recovery and disaster recovery to meet the objectives of my customers. It should be concise enough and yet comprehensive enough that it's real and it shows me you know what you're doing. Many critical suppliers do not have this document. And that can be sometimes either concerning, or sometimes, guess what? Critical suppliers are sharing confidential information they don't need to share. They're sharing their actual recovery plans. You don't need to do that unless your purchasing agreement requires it. So always, first and foremost, just demonstrate compliance. Have that customer BCM overview document that tells your customers, this is how we are going to manage business continuity in a disruption, before, during, and after. And make sure your management, your legal, your corporate communication reviews that customer BCM document. Again, puts you in the most favorable light, that's honest and truthful, but shows that, you know what, we know what we're doing. Okay. Secondly, second way to demonstrate compliance. In many cases, you might have to do on-site inspections. So be prepared to conduct tours, whether your data centers, whether they're primary or alternate, same thing for your critical sites. We've had customers that have asked, please go visit the critical locations of our critical suppliers, whether that's manufacturing, distribution, or technology. Make sure what they say is really what's happening. Very important. So be prepared and make sure you, again, whatever you show is you're going to show it in the most favorable light that shows resiliency, continuity, and that if something happens, it can be recovered. And then lastly, make sure you compliance with the requirements. Some of you may be asked to use SOC 1, SOC 2. Maybe you have a third-party audit. Sometimes critical suppliers will ask us, can you do a third-party audit for us of our continuity program to show that, yes, we're consistent with standards and we can recover. Make sure you have that recovery plan or test results. So you can see you're starting to put together a very clear picture. Here's what I'm doing on an overview process. Here's all of my on-site inspections should you need it. And third, here's all of the different ways that I can prove that it's all in place through plans, test results, third-party audits, SOC 1 or 2 reports. Now, this takes time, and I'll never be afraid to work with your customers. I think a lot of times critical suppliers get concerned that they're going to be audited, and if they don't have the perfect business continuity program in place, they're going to lose the contract. That's not the case. If you're truly working with a customer who wants to be your partner in this, they'll work with you. Be transparent. Say, this is where my gaps are. This is where my risks remain. I'm working towards it. Majority will be happy to say, gosh, thank you for letting us know. Now let's work towards it and show progress. Okay. Now, additionally, this is a critical aspect. Your critical suppliers could also be your weakest link. As we talked about a little bit earlier, some of our sophisticated customers, they're now moving also towards fourth-party assessments. So some are saying, okay, I've looked at my third party. Now I'm going to look at I'm going to talk to my critical suppliers and ask them, who are your subcontractors and suppliers, and making sure, do they also have a sound business continuity program? Now, this is still off in the future for most, but be prepared. So make sure too, when you select the suppliers for you, they also have products and services and goods that, guess what? They have the right business continuity behind them. Very, very important. So be prepared also to talk to the continuity aspects of your key suppliers and how they meet your needs. Because I will tell you this, in many of the, especially in the financial technology companies we do work for, etc., everybody's using third-party technology, all of the cloud providers. So in that, again, we're always asking, well, what's their business continuity plan like? How soon can they recover your services that you're supplying back to my customer? So be prepared for that. Make sure you pick the right customers or the right suppliers to you as well that, again, have sound business continuity behind them. And then as well, you're going to need to conduct your own BCM assessment of your critical suppliers. Make sure you regularly check, is your plan up to date? May we see it? Can we see your BCM overview document? Or if they're super critical in your contracts, you may say, I want to participate in your test or validate your test results. So regularly assess your critical suppliers, because that's going to be coming here soon. But again, it's very important to make sure you can stay up and running, your critical supplier, your own critical supplier stay up and running. And in essence, again, you're producing a solid business continuity picture back to your main customer. Okay. Now, be real in your business continuity documents. Boy, this is big. Continuing to see how do you demonstrate compliances. Make sure in that business continuity overview that you always highlight the positive side. My governance, my policy, and the capabilities of your program. You know, it needs to be high level in nature. It doesn't have to get down to the specific, but it gives the customer that confidence that you know what you're doing. There's many cases when I read business continuity overview documents where it clearly shows, again, that critical supplier is new to business continuity, and again, requires me at that point to ask for additional information. Be concise, be transparent, and make sure that it's real, okay? And make sure you share this first with your customers. You don't need to share your detailed recovery plans and strategy and solution. Share this business continuity customer overview document first. Many cases, if it's well written and it's transparent and truthful to what you know you can do, majority of times it'll suffice. But again, share that first. We've had cases where we've had clients share everything they have behind the scenes, which in many cases can lead to confusion, many additional question, on-site visits. So write that business continuity customer overview document in a solid fashion. Make sure it states appropriately what it needs to from what your business continuity program does. And from there, then move on. Okay. Now, your business continuity and disaster recovery plans and docs, you're going to need these as well. These, again, in some cases, some of you with your purchasing agreements, state specifically that I can review plans specific to people's processes. So be prepared to make sure you have those plans ready and that they're valid and they're up to date and current and are executable. So keep those confidential. You don't always have to show them unless it's required. And make sure that you can show results. Show results that your program works. In many cases, we'll have critical suppliers that'll have the customer overview. They'll have the recovery plans and documents, recovery plan documents all in place. But again, they're not showing any results. You have to test. You have to validate that you can recover. And again, only share all of your confidential information, such as your business continuity and disaster recovery plans and documents. Only share them with your customers if you agree to in advance as part of your purchasing agreement. That's why that business continuity customer overview document becomes so important. Now, what if I have no BCM capability? This happened to a number of our customers. This is, we'll get calls from critical suppliers saying, hey, can you come and can you create a business continuity program? We'll say, of course we can work with you. What do you need it? Well, we'll need it in 2 weeks, or we'll need it in 4 weeks, which again, in many cases, it's impossible. So what do I do though if I have no business continuity management capability and my customers are saying, hey, you got to show me something? Well, first and foremost, be transparent. If you're new to it or you have some form or fashion of, be transparent. Because again, the last thing you want them to do is actually ask for critical information you don't have, or you don't have the knowledge in your organization to talk to it. So get educated on business continuity as well. So be transparent and get educated on business continuity. Know what it means. Know what the key terms mean. BIA, recovery strategy, recovery solutions, recovery exercises. Understand at least at a high level what this all means and what they're looking for. Now, see what you can do in the interim. Gosh, can I at least start to get my backups in place? Can I create a skeleton set of recovery plans that I need in order to respond back to this customer? What about alternate work capabilities? So by you being transparent, getting educated, you can then start to create some sort of framework. It's not perfect, but you start to show your customer you're making progress. Now, very important as well, generate some sort of roadmap or schedule for implementation of business continuity if your customer is requiring it. So you start to show them progress. Too many times folks don't do the roadmap, don't do the schedule, so customers become very concerned. Hey, you told me you don't have anything, but what progress are you going to make, and when are you going to have a program for us to see? Now, and be ready to invest people, time, and money to build the program. Here's what's so interesting, and this is more on the customer side that we see is a failure. Many cases, clients or their critical suppliers don't have a business continuity program. Customer pressures them, they produce minimal set of documents, and their customer never comes back and checks on them. Did they finish business continuity? Is it in place? Has it been tested? But again, remember, this is also good for you. And I'll be honest, as a consulting firm and a company that has software as a service business continuity tools, we get asked by our subscribers for business continuity plans and tests. And I'll be honest, even as a consultant who does this all the time, there's a lot of times like, now I got to write continuity plans for myself. But in the end, it's all good. Because again, you're protecting your own business first and foremost. And by doing that, you become more resilient, you understand your processes, and if something happens, you're going to stay in business. Now, and then lastly, please share progress with your customer. Maybe in your roadmap, you didn't meet certain timelines due to budget or timing, but let them know, hey, here's where we're at, here's where we're going to get, and as you do make good progress, let them know as well. Because again, you're trying to create a partnership, and that's what's so important about demonstrating compliance. Create that partnership, be transparent, let them know where you're at, and move forward in creating a program that works for both of you. Okay, communication. In many cases, again, when you have a disruption, critical suppliers are always concerned. Well, what should I communicate? When should I communicate? Should I communicate? Am I required to communicate? So remember, as part of your purchasing agreement, or whatever agreement you have with your customer, in many cases today, they will not only tell you, here's the service level expectation we have for business continuity. We have a right to inspect your documents and or come on site, but they'll also state to you specifically, should you have certain levels of disruption, you must communicate with us within specific time periods. So in addition to having your overview document, your recovery plans and documents you need to validate you can recover your processes, systems, and technology, you also need a customer crisis communication plan. Basically says, gives you a very clear picture. Here's the points of contact at each of our customer. Outlines under what circumstances in a disruption, will we communicate to our customers? When and where will it be communicated? How soon are we required to communicate it? Here's what we find though. We find in many cases, a lot of critical suppliers, because of the many different contracts they have, reach a level of confusion when it comes to communication. What am I supposed to communicate? When am I supposed to communicate? What am I supposed to communicate and to who? So get a very clear picture from all your different agreements, so when your communications folks know that if you have a disruption, when are they supposed to communicate to your customers? So there's no disagreement as to what, how, when, and where. Okay. Also, who's authorized to make these customer communications? Is it legal? Is it corporate communications? Is it one of your senior executives? Put all of this in your customer crisis communications plan. So important. Now, recently we've done some mock disasters for clients who are deemed critical suppliers. And we've had a pushback at times from the communications group saying, why do I need messaging scripts in my customer crisis communication plan? They're like, when something happens, we'll write it. Well, I'm going to tell you, there's nothing better than already having a skeleton messaging script that I can edit, that's already has some good thoughts down that I can quickly edit and change based on the scenario. So I can quickly make a change and communicate it versus trying to come up with something on the fly. So again, have that plan and those messaging scripts for the most relative events that could happen, that could be caused by a disruption, could impact your customers, that you may need to send out. And lastly, please make sure in your customer crisis communication plan that you have current customer contact lists. You would be amazed. I understand this could change daily. Make sure you have a way to at least get 80–90% accuracy. So when you do need to make notifications out to your customers, it's the right people that you need to get a hold of. So remember that. Customer crisis communication plan is absolutely critical, needs to be up to date, needs to be exercised, and you need to be prepared on how you're going to communicate out to your customers should something happen. So how can a consultant help? Different ways. So a consultant can help you in, hey, I'm going to assess your business continuity and DR capability and needs. I can basically tell you where you're at and where you need to go. Help you review your BCM contract language. Again, that is really important. Make sure, again, in your BCM contract language, what are we getting ourselves into? So when they do show up at your doorstep, wow, I didn't review this in the contract, that you had the right to come in. Make sure you understand what rights are being given as part of business continuity. Can they have a right to review your plans on a regular basis, participate in your recovery exercises, etc. So that's the second way a consultant can help you, is review that contract language and make sure it's appropriate and makes sense to you and your organization and what you're willing to sign up for. Because again, in many cases in the BCM contract language, they're now also asking for recovery time objectives. They're specifically stating, here's, if you're going to be our supplier, here's when you need to provide that service, product, or good. So be prepared for that. Build a customer BCM communication. What is that crisis communication plan going to look like? Should we need to communicate back out to our customers? Conduct a BIA, or a business impact analysis. In many cases, a lot of our clients who are critical suppliers don't know what is critical to them and what are the processes that they require in order to produce that product, good, or service that goes back to their customer. Build those business continuity and disaster recovery plans. And again, remember, by doing the BIA, you're able to identify really what needs a plan and what doesn't, in order to, again, meet the needs of our customers. Do I really need to write 50 plans when 20 will support the most critical aspects of our business, and again, will meet the needs of our customers? Conduct exercises and document results. Perform third-party assessments. In some cases, a consultant can help you perform a third-party assessment of your business continuity program to validate that it's good, that it's sound, and your customers are happy with that. Serve as a subject matter expert or liaison. What we find in some cases is, between the customer and the critical supplier, sometimes the critical supplier doesn't have a full understanding of business continuity and what it means, the terminology, etc. So again, get that subject matter expert that can help you understand the language and what does it mean. And again, what do we actually have to invest in people, time, and resources to meet their needs, to not only protect our business, but also, again, meet the needs of our customer, ensure they continue in business using our product, good, or service. And lastly, you may also have a subject matter expert to help you conduct a review of your critical suppliers as well to make sure whatever's being provided to you is sound when it comes to business continuity. So remember, whoever you use as your subject matter expert, remember, it protects your business first, and that's a good thing. That's a good thing. And again, in many cases, a lot of times our critical suppliers will get irritated with their customers because of all of the different requirements they have. But if you have a good understanding of what business continuity management is, know what's critical, what is critical that we need to protect to support our customers, know how to communicate with them, and have the right plans and testing in place. Again, it's good for you, it's good for your business, and is the right thing to do because it'll keep you in business longer should something happen to your business. So I want to thank you. Again, this is Michael Herrera, and I wanted to thank Bob and DRJ. And again, have a great day, and we look forward to your questions.
Wonderful. Thanks, Michael. And again, if you do have any questions for Michael, you can locate the question panel on the right-hand side of your screen. First question here today, how would you recommend handling requests for information where your continuity plans have impact on multiple customers? You could reveal information about customers that should not be revealed to other customers, I'm assuming.
Yes. So that's why that BCM, if you have a business continuity customer overview document that provides all customers, no matter what request, gives them an overview of how your business continuity program runs, how it's tested, how it's validated. That way, then you're just providing them with a nice 5 to 7 pages of here's how our program works, and you're not providing information on all your other customers and all that other critical information.
All right, that's the only actually, another question just popped up. Oops, several here. Sorry. Chasing the questions here. If I wanted to write a vendor questionnaire, which standard do you recommend?
Wow, that's a great question. So I really do believe if you take a look at National Fire Protection Act 1600. That will provide you detailed information in the different aspects of business continuity, from BIA to threat and risk to business and IT disaster recovery plans. Provides you with detailed criteria on the types of things you should ask. Now, here's what I'll say to everybody listening today. There's no need to send a questionnaire that has 200, 300 questions. You can look at one of these standards, come up with 20 to 25 questions. Honestly, we typically will, in 15 to 25 questions, I can tell you if a program is good or not. So take a look at what you're asking and make sure you're asking the right questions that if they answer one way or the other, you can determine, hey, they either got something good or I really got to look somewhere else.
Oops, I'm sorry.
That's okay, Bob.
I was on mute. I was talking.
No problem.
So what tool do you use for conducting full-scale DR simulation exercises?
So typically when you say DR simulation, typically there won't be any tools, when you're conducting an exercise. You can, of course, there's different automated tools from a disaster recovery perspective to run your exercise for you that'll actually automate the test itself, like Zerto and all those others. But typically, if I'm just coordinating an exercise, it's typically just managed through a typical, project management process, or process taking it from initial event detection through response to recovery and resumption. So we typically will follow that approach. There's not typically a tool that we use to manage that. We'll use different items to track and manage action items from it, but not a tool to manage the overall. At least we don't typically use a tool.
All right. Someone asked again what site you had referred to in the previous question.
Oh, yes. The site for the industry standard?
Yes. Yes.
If you would go look at National Fire Protection Act 1600, or also known as NFPA 1600. That is a good standard to use, gives you good specific criteria that you can ask different folks across their entire continuity program.
All right, next question here. How would you recommend responding to a challenging question such as, how much time would it take to replace a critical vendor? Questions like this have so many possibilities, so we respond with a range which includes low complexity to high complexity.
Mm-hmm. See, I like that and sometimes do not be afraid to be honest. If they ask a question, because you have to remember, you don't know who's asking the question, right? And they may have taken this question from somebody else's questionnaire or something they found on the internet. So that's a really tough question. How do you replace a critical vendor, right? because I know that FFIC, or Federal Financial Institution Examination Council standard, requires you to consider third-party capacity and what would we do if we lost one of our critical vendors. So be careful in how you answer it. A range is good, or if you don't understand the question, it's okay to say, what specifically do you mean? And you may be able to say, here's how we would handle in high level if we lost a critical vendor. So take a step back, look at it. I like that approach on low to high complexity because there's so many variables. So be very careful in answering it. If you don't understand the question, just say, I don't understand. Can you elaborate? And sometimes they'll say, oh, you know what? Didn't mean to ask that, or hey, here's what I'm actually asking. So don't be afraid to do that.
All right, any suggestion on a recommended format of client communication plan, a separate document, or a part or section of business continuity plans or incident management plans?
So what I typically like to see is, from a crisis communication perspective for customers, a separate document, and that way then it's easy for you. It should be part of your crisis communications plan, and there should be a section in here, customer communications, and that should be managed by those folks who are specifically responsible for internal and external communications. It should be its own separate document.
All right, wonderful. Great Q&A here today. Any other questions you do have for Michael? Again, his contact information is there on the screen. So any parting words here today, Michael?
Well, all of you as critical suppliers, the best of luck. And again, remember, business continuity is good for you. Understand what it means from the customer perspective. Work together, be transparent, and understand. Don't try to create your business continuity program all at once. It takes time, and in the end, will be good for everybody. Thank you again, Bob. Thank you again. Thank you, DRJ. And again, everybody have a great, safe day out there.
All right, wonderful. Thanks again, everyone, for your attendance here today. We again hope you gather some great information from today's webinar. DRJ would also like to thank Michael for his time here today, as well as MHA for sponsoring today's webinar. We will be emailing everyone a link to the recording. You may view that recording as frequently as you wish or share it with your peers. If you do have any additional questions, please contact Disaster Recovery Journal. Thanks again, and hope you have a great rest of your day.
Thank you.